Hi, and welcome back. I hope that you had a great week. This week in Level E, we're going to be covering lessons 29 through 32, and you'll need worksheets 16 through 19, the activities for learning abacus, the math card games book, and your multiplication card deck. So in lesson 29, we'll be working on solving two-step addition and subtraction problems. The warm-up questions are a quick review of subtracting and getting a negative number for an answer, as well as rounding. So notice that we only have 5 problems to work on in today's lesson, and I want you to remember that spending time on a few problems and really understanding the process is far more productive than slogging through 50 problems. These story problems require your student to figure out the mathematical answer and then determine the answer to a secondary question. So in the first problem, your child is facing huge numbers, and it's easier to think of smaller numbers to figure out what procedure you need to use in the actual problem. So this is not the same as rounding. It's simply a way to know whether they need to add or subtract, multiply, or divide. So notice with the second problem that you should let your child figure out how to solve the problem and explain it to you first. And then you can mention, hey, by the way, rounding would have been easier, don't you think? And then you can walk through the process of how rounding actually works. And in this case, we're dealing with money. So we want to know, do we have enough money to purchase the items? And so in that case, it's much smarter to round everything up, even though technically some of those numbers could have been rounded down. It would not have guaranteed that you had enough money. But in this case, if you round up, you'll know that you have enough. So in problem 3, we introduced the fact that in story problems, there's often unimportant, extraneous information that can either confuse us or just get in the way, distract us from solving the problem. So it may take 2 or even 3 readings of the problem to sift out the information and focus on what is important. And that is a far better technique to use than to look for keywords, which some curriculums teach the students to look for keywords that would tell them whether they need to add or subtract, multiply, or divide without actually understanding the problem. The problem with this is many of those keywords that they say work for addition could also imply multiplication. So the keywords really don't help. The student actually needs to understand the problem, and so that's why we do not focus on keywords. So if your child is not able to explain the answer to number 4 and number 5, but even got the right answer, just couldn't explain it well, go ahead and walk through the explanation together. The in conclusion section is really important this time, and it points out why those keywords are not a good strategy for solving problems. So then to finish up this lesson, go ahead and have your child choose a game. All right, for lesson 30, we will be working on number puzzles and comparing expressions. So notice how the method for solving the warm-up questions on the worksheet could vary depending on your students' particular inclination towards one way of subtracting over another, since we just recently introduced different ways. So they can choose which way they want to subtract as long as they get the right answer. All right, so these number puzzles are great brain teasers, and they have many solutions, so it's really fun to go beyond just the first one that pops into the mind. They are an excellent introduction to algebraic thinking because they show that one side of the equation has to be the same, has to equal the other side of the equation, regardless of how many numbers are there. Okay, now I will warn you, some children will become frustrated with these puzzles, and they may not even try them because it actually takes thought, and they just don't have the energy to put forth that thought, or they just think they're not capable of doing it. So I would really encourage your child to try and then give him or her time to think about it and show that you're not going to just let them get away with not doing it. Now, if they've really tried hard to solve the problem and they can't, then I would go ahead and maybe feed one of the symbols to them. So, hey, did you think about putting a plus sign here? What would happen if we did? You know, something like that, so that they kind of get a little bit of help. But pretty soon they're going to be whizzes at this and just throwing in the symbols and knowing exactly where things should go. Okay, so it's very fun. It's just you have to get over that hump for those who are a little bit reluctant. All right, so for the rest of the worksheet, thankfully the child is not expected to perform all the arithmetic there, but instead they're supposed to be comparing the numbers to find the answer. So for example, in one of them, it might have been 384 on one side, plus a couple of numbers. And then on the other side of the equal sign, it was 381 plus a couple of numbers. Well, right away they can see, okay, the number on the left, 384, has 3 more than the number on the right. So then they can go to the next number, which I don't know what it was, but maybe it was 197 compared to 191, something like that. So they can see that the left side has more, and then by the time they're done comparing all the numbers, they can write down the greater than sign, okay? So then you can play any game after the in conclusion question. All right, moving on to lesson 31. We're going to review multiplication on side 2 of the abacus. And after doing a few number puzzles on the worksheet, we're going to move on to the abacus, and I'll demonstrate for you how that works.
Okay, so as you can see, I have pushed the beads up to the middle of the abacus on side 2. I've written down my problem, 365 times 9, and I'm going to enter 365 down here at the bottom. So here are my hundreds, 300, 610, 5. And we're going to go ahead and multiply by 9. Now notice how at the top of the page, the title for this lesson is called Partial Products. So we're going to write down the partial products, and this is not how your child is going to do multiplication all the time, but it is a great introduction, and it's a good way to understand what is actually happening in the multiplication process. So let's go ahead and look and see how that works. So 9 times 5 is 45, so I'm going to move the 5 up. We've already done that. And my answer is 410, 5. Okay. I can go ahead and write that down. I'm going to write down 45. Okay. Next question is 9 times 610. Okay. So 9 times 6 is 54, but since it's 610, that's 540. So I'm going to go ahead and enter 500, 410. I can go ahead and get rid of these 6 down here because we just did that problem. Okay, so 540 is written down. Now the next one is 9 times 300. So 9 times 3 is 27. So it's going to be 2,700. So here we have 2,700 there. Okay, I'm going to write down 2,700 on my line. Oh, look it, we're going to have to trade here. So we're going to have to trade 10 hundreds for 1,000. Okay, and what is my answer up here? My answer is 3,200, 810, 5. Now let's just check. Oh, I forgot to get rid of those. Let's just check. 5 plus 0 is 5. 4 and 4 is 8. 5 and 7 is 12. Carry the 1, which we did by trading. 2 and 1 is 3. So I did get the exact same answer. Okay? So that's how you would do partial products on the second side of the abacus.
Okay, so after your child has completed the worksheet and you have checked the answers, of course, go ahead and ask the in conclusion questions and then play multiplication Old Main, which is P14 in the Math Card Games book. All right, moving on to lesson 32. We will be working with multiplying on the abacus again, but this time not using partial products. Your child will see right away that this is a much faster and easier way to multiply. So let's take a look at how that works.
Okay, so let's go ahead. Notice again how I have the beads halfway up. Okay, and our problem is 2,700, 310, times 3. Okay, so I'm going to write, or I'm going to enter 2,700, 310, 6. 2,700, 310, 6 at the bottom here. I'm going to multiply by 3. So 3 times 6 is 18. So I can push the 6 back up. I enter a 10 and an 8, right? So that's 18. I write down the 8 and I carry the 1. Okay, now 3 times 30 is 90. Okay, so I can go ahead and enter the 910. And I can see right away, because there was a 10 there already, I'm going to have to trade. So I'm going to trade 10 tens for 100. So I write down the 0 because there's 0 in my tens column. I carry the 1 because of this 100 over here. Then I say 3 times 700 is 2100, which I'll enter right here. So here's the 2100, 2100. How many hundreds do I have? I have 2 of them. So how many hundreds do I have? I have 200. And I carried the 2 for the 2000. So now I say 3 times 2000 is 6000. So here's the 2 going up and 6000 going up, plus the 2 that's already there is 8000. So my answer is 8,208. Let's go ahead and try another one. So I'm going to enter 2,800, 610, 2 times 2. So 2 times 2 is 4. Go ahead and enter the 4 and write it down. 2 times 60 is 120. So 120. And I write down the 20 and carry the 1 for the hundreds. Now I say 2 times 8 is 16, or in this case, 2 times 800 is 1600. So I go ahead and write or carry up. Sorry, I was supposed to enter all of these. 1600. There we go. And I write down what I have in the hundreds column, which is 700. And how many thousands did I bring over? That was 1. So 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 2 is 4. Plus the 1 is 5. So I've got 5,724, or 210.4. Okay, so I hope that helps. You might want to practice it a little bit on your own first if you're not very comfortable with it, just to see how it works. It does come pretty easily to most kids, and it's usually us adults who have trouble with it. So go ahead and give that a shot.
Okay, so after walking your student through 1 or maybe 2 examples, have her go ahead and finish the worksheet and then ask the in conclusion question, and then you could play multiplication multiplication Old Main once again. Since we're only covering 4 lessons per week, don't forget to play games on that 5th day, or use it to review concepts that you think your child doesn't have solidified, but the best way to review that would be using the games. So that's it for this week, and I hope to see you next time for lessons 33 through 36. Take care. Thanks. Bye-bye.